Okay. So they told us to fly to taxi rather to runway 3 and to hold short. That means you're not allowed to get on the runway. It's not legal to do that. Gonna probably cause an accident and die horribly. So they also told us which taxiway to use. Now, since we don't really want to know all the layouts of all the freaking airports by heart, we're just gonna turn on progressive taxi. Turn on progressive taxi shows us a couple of arrows. They're hard to tell, but that they're there. We'll see them in a little bit, and they show us the way, just so we don't screw up that part of the simulation. The next thing we want to do is hold Shift and P. Press P and hold Shift, and this will basically pull us back. Okay, so now you'd have to imagine there's a tow truck that pulls us back a little bit, and we just do that to get enough space in front of us to basically maneuver. And we're gonna hold Shift and hit P again, and this releases us, and the imaginary tow truck is now gone. There's extensions you can download to make them visible and stuff, but I don't have any. And now we have enough space in front of us. So what we can do now is we can engage the throttle just a little bit to give it a little bit of power, and we're going to start taxiing. Now, I must warn you, I have only buttons to enable power, and it's very finicky. So I might taxi too slow or too fast at points, and that's mostly due to me using the Xbox controller, I'd say. The way we turn, by the way, do not just use the analog stick and push it left and right, like so. Actually, that's a good point. We should probably test our control surfaces, even though we kind of did. So, again, this is our ailerons, as you can see right here. These control surfaces are ailerons, and these are the left-right motion with the left analog stick on my pad. Do not use those to taxi. That's not the right way to taxi. Use the rudder. The rudder is this. This is what you use for taxiing in this airplane. Okay, and they use the trigger axes again to use those. And then you can use your left analog stick and push it up and down, and that's your elevator, right? This is the pitch. The ailerons are the bank or the roll, and the rudder is the yaw of the plane. That's the heading. Okay, so what we did right there was a check. We basically, we would check that all the surfaces are actually working, they're not blocked or anything. So now we're ready to go to taxi, or start to taxi. So I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle here. Just a bit. Kind of hold down the left rudder so we make a little nice and easy turn. And now you're going to see the progressive taxiing, which was these arrows on the ground. And they show you kind of where you need to be. Technically, you should be always on the yellow stripes on the ground. But again, with this controller here, this gamepad, I'm going to give it a little bit more throttle here. It's very, very tricky to do that. So you just have to forgive me here for horrible taxiing, probably. Giving it a little bit more throttle. Again, that's also a little bit hard to do. We're turning a little bit too soon, but it doesn't matter. I'm not that deep into the simulation that I really care too much about that. And now we're on our way to taxi, I think it was runway H. Sorry, taxiway H, yes, to runway 3. Now, they told us to fly runway heading, okay, and climb to 4,000. We already set up the autopilot to climb to 4,000 feet, but we are going to have to set the autopilot the heading bug so we can also fly in the direction of the runway. Now, you might ask, how do I know what the runway direction is? And the answer is it's in the number, pretty much. It's not always 100% correct, but it should be good enough for our means right now. We're flying from runway 3, or 03, and that means it's going to be at an angle of 30 degrees. So actually, while we're taxiing, I'm going to give it a little bit more throttle. We might already want to set the heading bug to 30. We're already at 21, so just set it to 30. And this means that when we lifted off, we took off, basically, we can activate the autopilot as soon as we're ready. It's actually a 737 over there. I hope it's not going to mess with our traffic here. Remember, we're actually only cleared to hold short of the runway, so we don't do not touch the runway here because there might be planes landing. It looks like there's at least a Cessna. I think it does a touch and go. Yeah, touch and go is where it touches the ground and then takes off again in one motion. So the autopilot is going to be set to 4,000 feet, and we can lift off, we can do our things, and we can enable the autopilot, and we can set it to altitude hold and heading hold, and it's going to fly exactly as the ATC told us to fly, pretty much. Take a leaf a couple of degrees. And that's cool, right? We don't have to worry about anything from that point on. So that's really good. That's why we use that. So we have the heading box set up. We've got the altitude set up to 4,000. It's all good. We're pretty much ready to take off. I think we did all the things on my mental checklist here. I have the flaps extended to 10 degrees, which is good on this aircraft. Yeah, and that should be just about it. So it's looking good. And we'll be in the air soon, hopefully. I think the Cessna did their little maneuver there. And we're coming close to the end of runway 3 here in Biggin Hills. We're completely off the yellow line, by the way, but as I said, I enjoy this game. I keep saying game. It's kind of a game to me, to be honest. I don't really care. But I enjoy the simming aspects of it, but I don't go crazy yet. So the progressive taxi lines end here because that's the runway. So we're gonna take off the throttle here and kind of just roll to a stop, and don't extend the yellow line. Actually, a little bit too far. I hit the brakes there. So now we're in position, and once we're in position, we can request takeoff clearance, and we'll see if they give it to us, or if they're the Boeing or whatever other aircraft comes in before. Let's hope they give it to us. All right. Usually I just get the clearance to take off immediately. Now they told us to get into position and hold, so I think that means we can get onto the runway. I assume it does. But this is the first time where something happened that I wasn't prepared for, and you can tell how incredibly newbie I am at this. Okay, now they tell us I don't know why they had to do this, but now they gave us takeoff clearance, so we can acknowledge. We have to acknowledge that. We'll hit Shift 2 and Shift 3 again. We'll zoom in GPS a little bit, just so we can tell what's going on a little bit better here. And we're ready to go. Now they're waiting for us to go. So what we're going to do to take off here is very simple. We're just going to give it all the throttle. And then we're going to wait for what's called V1. This is a certain velocity, which I actually don't know exactly what it is on this plane, and I'm not going to bother with it. Actually, we're just going to wait for like 90 knots or something, and then we're going to rotate. And rotate means we're going to push the nose up, and we're going to take off. And that's pretty much it. And while we're doing this, we want to keep the nose centered as much as possible. This aircraft, since it's a single engine propeller, it actually likes to kind of behave a little bit badly when it's taking off. So it's going to be a little bit hectic here. Also because I'm using the gamepad controller, and I'm kind of a bad pilot at this point. So yeah, it's going to probably feel a little bit questionable. Now we're taking off. It almost immediately works. Like it does it by itself, I mean. We don't want to climb too hard here. We're just at about 12 degrees. That's good. Now we bring the flaps in. Flaps are in. Autopilot on. Heading and altitude. And we're in the clear. The autopilot is now in control. I let go of my controller, and it actually turns us around a little bit. We're flying runway heading, and we're climbing. So that's exactly what they told us. They're going to tell us that we want to switch frequencies now, and that's what's called a handoff. We're not flying according to our flight plan quite yet. You can see here our flight plan calls us to fly sort of south, obviously, because we're going from England to France. Currently, we're just flying north, but we have to do this because the ATC has higher priority than our flight plan. They tell us to contact a different radio station, a different ATC, so we're going to acknowledge that. And now at this point in real life, we would have to mess with our radios to tune in the new frequency. In this case, we don't have to do that because this is a shortcut. We can click this button and bam, it does it for us automatically, and we can contact the new guys.